Family and fellow soldiers, I'm the Professor, and this is the Moment of Truth.
In my campaign for president, I pledged to give America the most spectacular birthday party the world has ever seen for America's 250th anniversary on July 4th next year. In the fall, we will host the first ever Patriot Games, an unprecedented 4-day athletic event featuring the greatest high school athletes, one young man and one young woman from each state and territory. But I promise there will be no men playing in women's sports. You're not going to see that. You'll see everything but that.
Next year is America's 250th anniversary, the 250th anniversary of this failed experiment in democracy. As Dr. John Henrik Clarke said, America has never been a democracy. If this country had been a democracy for even a single day, that would be the end of it. And he was absolutely right. I listen to my people's heroes and thought leaders because they are the only people worthy of us listening to. White America, and this includes the so-called left, insists that this country is a democracy when the truth is it's a masquerade of democracy, for white people at least, because they're the only ones who this country gives enough crumbs to that they would go along with the lie. For black people, on the other hand, we know it's not a democracy because this country makes sure to remind us every single day. This is why I'm not quaking in my boots over all the fear talk about America's going to become a fascist state under Trump. And no black person with an IQ higher than their shoe size should be quaking in their boots either. Not because Trump is a good guy or anything, he's not. But because when you look at the condition of black people and you look at all the fear talk that the white leftists claim is going to happen under a fascist state, we're already suffering all of those things as black people now. We are the overwhelming majority of those incarcerated, even when it's proven that we're also the overwhelming majority of those wrongfully convicted. We are the overwhelming majority of those who are impoverished, the overwhelming majority of those who have disparately bad health outcomes. Policies are written specifically to target us. The political leadership ignores our needs and exacerbates our deprivation. We are demonized by every major arena of the society. White leftists are afraid of fascism in the U.S. because they've never had to suffer it. Black people, on the other hand, have been living under racial fascism the entire time. This is what happens when you have a country with color-coded laws and a racially stratified structure. You get two countries occupying the same land. And that fact never bothered anyone, as long as we were the ones on the receiving end. But now there's a chance that the very white and white-adjacent machine that they set up was going to bite them. And now all of a sudden it's a problem. Now all of a sudden they're talking about fascism. Not one of your so-called leftists has ever pointed out that the treatment of black people in America proves that America is not and has never been a democracy. And if they're afraid of Trump, then why don't they recognize that fascism is already here and has been here all along? The white left doesn't need to prevent fascism. What they need to do is to tear down the fascism that already exists. But they're liars, just like he is, so they won't. I've pointed out to you in numerous videos that the fasces, the symbol of ancient Rome that the word fascism is derived from, can be found all over the U.S. Capitol, from the Washington Monument to the Capitol Building to the Chambers of Congress. The fasces is one of the founding symbols of the United States. So any way you look at it, this country has been a proud fascist institution from day one. The only people who don't see it are white society, self-serving immigrants, and ignorant Negroes who don't see danger until it's got its hands around their throats. And that's the reason why I'm not celebrating America's 250th birthday, and you shouldn't either. As long as we are not free, there is nothing to celebrate. As long as this country does not benefit the people who built its wealth, and that is unequivocally us and us alone, why the hell would I actually celebrate this country's anything? What the hell would I look like saying, God bless America? America has done nothing but curse us. We're not going along with the white lie that everything was fine in America until the orange man came along and started talking rudely. The world needs to see America for what it truly is, and his being reelected did more to expose this country than anything else, because it showed that even after he carried out an insurrection, his white supremacist rhetoric was enough to not only get him reelected, but to do so by a larger margin than he got in 2016. Next year is not the 250th anniversary of freedom, because there is no freedom here, certainly not for us. Next year is the 250th anniversary of the slave owners' revolt. which is what the American Revolution ought to be called. All but one or two of the founding white supremacists of this country were slave owners, and the fact that virtually all of the nation's founders were slave owners shows you that this country was built on slavery. And it was precisely that undeserved and unearned slave revenue that they started a war to protect. They didn't want to split the vig with England anymore, that's all it was about. As Dr. John Henrik Clarke said, it was nothing more than an argument between a couple of thugs about which one of them was going to rule over us. And the Orange Man's recommendation of youth athletics, that's about as original a thought that he gets. And of course he's going to have a title for this thing like Patriot Games. He is an entertainer after all, though not a very good one. So why not use the title of a movie, Patriot Games? Now, people are already comparing this stunt of his to the Hunger Games, and no, I'm not familiar with that movie either. Now, black people are the best athletes hands down, so it would be the height of perverted irony that the people this country has oppressed and shut out of all opportunity would be the face of American primacy in the most socially relevant arena of all, sports. And that apparently this is going to be something to celebrate on behalf of all America. All of these people who have been claiming that they don't like the Orange Man, they're going to be nonetheless sending their own representatives for this. You can bet on that. Trump is exactly what America deserves, because he's exactly what America is. Racist, violent, lying, ego-driven, crazy, and insane. He's the embodiment of the American dream, to have enough money to indulge every perverted whim, to be immune from all consequences, and one hopes to be called a hero for all of this degenerate behavior. And just like America, he's no leader. This country claims to be the leader of the free world, but all it's ever done is lead the world into enslavement, oppression, and subjugation, and lies. As the Roman Empire fell into decline, it relied more and more on bread and circuses to keep the people pacified. Well, America ran out of bread a long time ago, literally and figuratively, so now it's resorting to circuses. And there will always be fools who go for it. This is why I have a special contempt for sports. You know what's really sad? Even if the Orange Man wasn't in office, whatever Democrat was there would be planning something along the exact same lines. The economy's in the toilet because both parties have hoarded themselves to corporate America and handed all of the nation's wealth over to them. And they all know the fastest way to get people's minds off of how crappy their own lives are is to distract them, get them high, keep them amused, offer them cheap thrills and temporary excitement. It's the golden blackjack that never misses. You have to get them on the hype train to buy back into the fraud of American democracy, and hopefully that will keep them from revolting for at least another year. And this is what they tell you and I is freedom. Not actually having freedom, but being told that we should feel good about some slave owners 250 years ago because aren't things better than they were then? Hell, even if you did buy into the lie of American democracy, and you have to be pretty stupid to do that, if you take a look at how the condition was of the so-called rebels 250 years ago and compare it to the working class today, you see the working class is much worse off. The amount of money the British Crown was confiscating in the form of taxes 250 years ago was nothing compared to what corporations and the government take today. And why isn't this country up in arms about that? Because as a wise man once said, this country was conquered a long time ago by the iPhone, internet porn, and sporting events. The white ruling elite of this country figured out a long time ago that the dominant society is also a lazy society. They're much more willing to daydream about prosperity as opposed to get off their butts and actually fight for it. They'll watch their lives go from sunrise to sunset with each day being worse than the one before. And the height of perversion being that they will also condemn their own children to the exact same fate. It's bad enough that they won't lift a finger on their own behalf, but they've also decided that they're not going to give so much as a peep on the behalf of their children either. And that's how you know this country is ultimately heading off a cliff and that nothing is going to actually stop it from happening. Black people have been used and abused as some sort of counterfeit conscience for a country that has no conscience. That's the reason why, even with the NBA players during the height of the BLM protests, you had trash like Laura Schlesinger complaining and whining and saying that LeBron James needed to protest the Chinese government for his crackdowns in Hong Kong. That heifer had the nerve to demand that black people lend our own good offices to what amounts to a white supremacist imperial project. Well, we weren't going for it then and still aren't going for it today. This country has a hell of a lot to atone for, not that it ever can. But if this country expects any black people of conscience to celebrate its 250th anniversary, then they better start going ahead and cutting those checks now. And I'm not talking about Trump's little tariff check schemes. I'm talking about reparations. See, this country is always ready, willing, and eager to plead poverty whenever it comes to black people making our demands. But the rest of the time, we see them sitting here giving out massive bailouts, giving out tens of billions of dollars to Ukraine and Israel and even to Argentina. And then if you got a president whose poll numbers ain't looking too good, all of a sudden they decide, let's go ahead and break the bank and give a stimulus check. Now, I'm not sure how much traction this high school athletic exhibition or whatever is going to have, but one thing's for sure. I'm not going to be applauding it, and neither should you. Not because the orange man is behind it, but because of the fact that there's nothing in it for us. This country doesn't deserve a birthday party. What it deserves is a trial in The Hague. That's what America should get. It shouldn't be praised, it should be condemned. There shouldn't be celebrations, there should be condemnations. Because that would be justice. But of course, justice is exactly what this country was created to deflect and destroy. And that's the reason why next year you're going to have a whole bunch of white liberals and Democrats and of course the bootlicks and the CBC who are going to be claiming, well, America's still worth celebrating. There's so much to be celebrated about this country. That's what they're going to be saying regardless. In fact, don't be surprised if Gavin Newsom and others decide they're going to try to one-up the orange man by putting on their own little counter celebrations to his. Expect to see that. A moral people would ask, does this country deserve to be celebrated? And if not, what needs to be changed about it? Because we're not going to celebrate until it is. But a people who are lacking in morality or lacking in character, they'll go along with it simply because you got some folks saying, woohoo, it's a party over here. And like a bunch of mindless lemmings, they'll say, me too, don't start the party without me. Well, you can go ahead and start the party without me, and you can leave me out of it. This country does not have my respect because this country hasn't respected me. I do not celebrate this country because this country hasn't given me anything to celebrate about. I am a moral man, and that being the case, I don't celebrate lies and fraud and oppression and degeneracy. I celebrate justice. I celebrate the things and the people that honor and magnify me. This country does not. And that being the case, you can go ahead and keep whatever little old celebrations you want about this thing. Far as I'm concerned, it'll be the 4th of July all year long. And that means I get to turn up my nose or turn up my middle finger at the shrieking fraud of American democracy. I'm not one of those people who gets excited just because somebody says, oh, we're going to throw a party. There are too many people who are programmed like that. As soon as somebody says we're going to throw a party, here they go. Well, I'm not stupid like that, and I sure hope you aren't either. Because no matter who it is who wants to call themselves getting you excited about celebrating anything about this cesspool of a country, you let them know that when it comes to black empowerment or to black oppression, that is no game. Good day, and be one. I'd like to take a moment to mention some of our contributors. Tyrone Leak, Suleiman Alaji, Wendell, Jacques Hargett, and Miss Debbie. Salute to them and thank you to everyone for listening, liking, and sharing this message. Black empowerment only exists because of you.